Hey there, fellow wanderers. Imagine stepping onto a narrow, cobbled path, where the crisp air nips gently at your cheeks. The scent of damp earth mingles with distant campfire smoke, curling through the wind like an old, forgotten lullaby. Ahead rises a medieval fortress, its shadow long and heavy in the fading light. Moss clings to ancient stones that whisper with age. As you draw closer, the iron-bound gate creaks open just enough to let you slip inside. Time slows. The air thickens with the breath of centuries. This is not myth, not fairy tale. This is history raw, heavy, and unadorned. And tonight, we walk its halls. So, before we dive deeper, I ask only this. If this kind of raw, unvarnished truth speaks to you, click like, hit subscribe, and leave a trace of yourself in the comments. Tell me your city, your time, your state of mind. Now, dim the lights. Let the hum of your fan blend with the wind of centuries past. Let's begin. And remember, in medieval times, even survival was a luxury. Once you enter through the castle's foreboding gate, there's a distinct shift in atmosphere. You're no longer standing at a distance admiring the fortress from afar, but have become enveloped by its very essence. The chill in the air dips another few notches, as the sun struggles to penetrate the gloom within the high stone walls. The thick, nearly tangible air is cool and slightly damp, almost as if the heavy stones draw moisture from the sky to use as a cloak. It's no wonder, given the fortress's primary purpose, defense. It stands as a bulwark against invaders, with sturdy walls built to withstand siege and time alike. This fortress didn't just emerge from dreams of grandeur, but from necessity, a necessity to protect, to sustain, and occasionally to intimidate. Historically, these imposing structures dotted the landscape like ominous sentinels. Designed to endure attacks, their architecture was both pragmatic and calculated. They needed to signal power and might, yet they also served more mundane roles. The fortress was a place where daily life hummed under the constant tension of potential aggression. Here, life ticked on in an intricate ballet of predictability and chaos, a world where heads of state made decisions that warped lives around them. Each stone tower and sharpened parapet was both a guardian and a witness, inscribing tales of victory and defeat in silent endurance. As you press forward, the path opens into a broader courtyard. In its heyday, the courtyard would have vibrated with an energy as fierce as the indomitable fortress walls. Craftsmen would have been bent to their tasks, their days harmonizing with the rhythm of hammers and anvils. Merchants, draped in heavy cloaks to ward away the chill, hawked their wares with great enthusiasm or desperation depending on the supply lines and the harvests of recent seasons. It was a place that housed lordly figures and their retinues, while labourers and servants, some barely distinguishable, if only by their ragged garb, moved about, fulfilling the ceaseless demands of such a protected dominion. It's humbling to see so plainly that a fortress is not just a fortress, but a breathing organism composed of 1,000 moving parts, a microcosm unto itself. You think of all the stories this place must hold, shrouded in mystery and tinged with moments of clarity shared between the scratching quill and the faded parchment of medieval scribes. You can almost hear them, whispering truths and embellishments about the trials and triumphs recorded within the safety of these walls. The fortress itself, with its battlements and bastions, was not merely an artifact of war. It was the sleeping lion, an animal of calculated might, where strategies unfolded and legacies of iron will were forged. Its existence demanded unity and fortitude among its inhabitants. The past comes alive here, bending between the cracks in the ancient stones, settling heavily in the narrow passageways. Historians still argue whether these fortresses were primarily fronts of oppression or symbols of stability. What remains undeniable, however, is their place in history as alchemical crucibles forging human fortitude and imagination. Within these stony embraces, time stretches out in tendrils, brushing against every wisp of wind. So as you wander aimlessly through this medieval fortress, let it remind you that humanity often dances its finest in the shadow of adversity, and within these walls, that dance continues, though the music has long since ceased. Beyond the first set of formidable gates, you find yourself deeper within the fortress walls. The air seems heavier here, laden with an unseen history that impresses itself upon your mind. This fortress is not just a static relic from the past, it's a living entity that thrummed with life and purpose. In the Middle Ages, it served as both a sanctuary and a stage for daily trials, where the ceaseless rhythm of medieval existence unfolded in gritty reality. As you move further inside, you can't help but notice the stark contrast between the robust outer defenses and the more delicate intricacies within. People didn't just live here, they lived fully, emphasizing their identities through choices both mundane and monumental. The fortress served many purposes: a residence for nobility, a military stronghold, and at times, a small town encased within stone walls. It's a place where every nook and cranny seems to echo stories of human intention and folly. You wander down a stone passageway, and your footfalls echo in the semi-darkness. The air feels cool against your skin, and you find yourself imagining bustling activities. Blacksmiths hammering away at metal, their rhythmic clanging, creating an otherworldly music amid the voices that rose and fell in animated dialogue. The Great Hall, a focal point for feasts and gatherings, would have hosted elaborate meals with rich stews, hearty breads, and pitchers of ale. This was a world of abundance and austerity, balanced on the knife edge of survival. In the corner of the rectangular courtyard, you spot a small well, its iron-bound mouth gaping open like an invitation or perhaps a warning. Water was the lifeblood of the fortress, not merely sustaining those within, but serving as a key tactical consideration. In its shimmering depths lay the stories of those who had drawn upon its life-giving flow, each splash a memory of battles waged and peace upheld. You sense the spaces between the stones, places where time has etched its indelible mark. It's all so real and tangible here, yet your modern mind might romanticize this existence as something quaint or adventurous. But for those who called this fortress home, life was a constant balance between comfort and hardship. Consider the drudgery of everyday chores in such an environment. Servants rushing to prepare meals, tend to horses, or clean the refuse. Life in a medieval fortress was full of laborious duties, much of which revolved around ensuring readiness for both hospitality and defense. While forests and fertile lands surrounded these strongholds, within, life was penned into courtyards and quarters, dictated by necessity more than desire. Your unwitting tendency might be to overlook this truth, perceiving instead a romanticized version of long-lost grandeur. Historians often debate whether the laypeople within these structures led lives of quiet contentment, or whether the oppressive stone walls represented a kind of imprisonment. Choices were limited, but so were the threats from the unknown beyond. It's hard to escape the grey tinge that paints your imagination as you wander further, trying to reconcile your modern sensibilities with the realities of medieval life. The fortress was a dynamic hub of activity, driven largely by the need to flourish against the odds. Specialized artisans perfected their crafts, and in a time before digital distractions, there was constant human interaction and education within these walls, though it might be more accurate to call it indoctrination by necessity and experience. And then there were the children, shadows of the future who scampered through these corridors, their lives an unending apprenticeship. They learned the arts of negotiation, the subtleties of demeanor, and the craft of persuasion. For them, play seamlessly blended with preparation for adulthood, a lesson written in every faltering step they took within these stony partitions. Amid the bustling energy, it's also easy to imagine the weight of boredom that must have loomed like a spectre, particularly in the long winter days. You picture soldiers idly sharpening their swords, inventing stories to pass the time, their exaggerated tales adding substance to future myths. Were these stories full of heroism or hyperbole that amused the children gathered around the roaring hearth, hanging on every word as though it forged their destiny? You can almost hear the laughter echoing through the courtyards, bouncing off the cold stone and spiraling upwards into oblivion. As you move from shadowed corner to sunlight patch, you consider the ramifications of political machinations that unfurled within these stone confines. It was a world of allegiances, where lords and ladies brokered power, alongside the common citizens whose lives they affected yet often ignored. A fortress was not just an embodiment of community strength, but a microcosm of medieval society itself, complete with its hierarchies, triumphs, contradictions, and fates all tangled in a web we can still untangle today. In the silence of the stone, as you pause and listen, you realize each creak of an ancient timber or groan of an iron hinge is a reminder. This isn't merely a faded history to study from afar, but an echo of human existence wrapped in both poetry and pragmatism, a world balanced delicately between yesterday and tomorrow. Moving further into the fortress, you feel the allure of climbing the aged stone steps leading up to the ramparts. Each step carries you higher, and as you ascend, the air seems to gain a touch of freedom, a slight stirring intensity found where walls meet the sky. Once atop the ramparts, a more generous breeze greets you, tousling your hair playfully and carrying the faintest scent of distant pine forests and burnished fields. Here, the fortress reveals another aspect of its multifaceted personality. To wander along these fortified walls is to step into an age-old rhythm, the pulse of vigilance guided by necessity and foresight. From this elevated vantage, your eyes pan across the sweeping panorama. It's not just about commanding views of the landscape, painted with the autumnal gold and russet of sprawling fields, and the glimmering silver ribbon of a distant river twisting through the valley. No, there is a strategic calculus unfolding here, a defender's map etched into the terrain below, where every rise or dip in elevation could mean the difference between safeguarding the castle's inhabitants or sounding a frantic alarm. As you walk the length of the ramparts, your hand grazes the immovable stone battlements, ancient witnesses to battles real and imagined. The chill of granite radiates through your fingertips, and you wonder about the sentries who had once trodden this exact path. The life on the ramparts was a mix of monotony and bursts of adrenaline, both dull fatigue and sharp awareness at every turn. In medieval times, soldiers paced these walls, eyes forever scanning the horizon for potential threats. The peace of day contrasted sharply with the menacing silence of night, where imagination filled the void between shadows. Looking at the sturdy battlements, you discover that these stone structures were more than mere scenery. They were a defensive architect's magnum opus, strategically designed to provide protection and advantage during a siege. Arrow slits, or loopholes, dot the stone walls. Narrow from the exterior perspective, these gaps widen internally, designed to allow archers to fire upon assailants with minimal exposure. It's a clever marriage of form and function. While today they might seem quaint or romantic, in their prime, they bore the weight of life and death decisions. And those archers, can you imagine them standing here, muscles taut with the tension of a drawn bowstring? Historians still argue whether the longbow or the crossbow held supremacy in siege warfare, both weapons bringing their own advantages and limitations to the defensive table. The debate continues because each weapon required different skills, strategies, and circumstances for use. Competent archers needed physique and proficiency, their bodies trained with meticulous discipline, familiarity with trajectories, and experience with judging the ever-shifting winds. As you walk along, the stone underfoot feels uneven, echoes of feet long past. On the ramparts, history's whispers grow a little louder, tales rising and diminishing on the idle conversational breeze. There's something inherently human about this watchful act, a simultaneous pull of duty and distraction. A joke or story might have been shared between guards, brief respites from the more pervasive climate of alertness that governed them. Even in silence, the steely resolve and camaraderie of warriors wind through the aged air, binding it with threads of bygone valor. Your gaze meanders to the crenellations zigzagging along the walls, a dance of shadows that seems so deliberate. These tooth-like projections were more than mere design. Their architecture allowed defenders to shield themselves while they launched their incendiary response to any threats below. It's a reminder that, though the fortress's core is pastoral and serene now, its outer edges tell primal tales of survival. Here, on the ramparts, the fortress's story is at its clearest, an unyielding institution where vigilance was both craft and creed. Imagine late nights, where sentinels wrapped in wool cloaks braved biting winds, blinking against the oppressive darkness under star-strewn ceilings, each glimmer a beacon of hope against shadows. A third joke flits to mind, perhaps one the guards might have shared. Why don't castle walls get cold? Because they wear battlements. As you contemplate this intricate structure of stone and imagination, with the valleys stretched before you and the skies cast in muted hues, You realize these ramparts offer more than a view or a strategy. They encapsulate the very essence of the medieval spirit, a harmony of practicality and permanence, a testament to humankind's mastery over its environment and its deeply ingrained need to stand watch over dreams and domains forged from stone and sweat. From the ramparts, you descend back into the heart of the fortress and find your way to the Great Hall, a cavernous, echoing space that speaks to the very core of medieval life. As you enter, the shift in atmosphere is palpable. Here, the air feels different, warmer, more intimate, as if the walls themselves could share 1,000 whispered secrets. The stone floors give way gently underfoot, your steps resounding in hushed percussion. The Great Hall is a place where stories lived, where they were spun and shared across generations. Its timbered beams stretch overhead like gnarled, ancient limbs, drawing your gaze upward to where flickering torchlight dances amid shadows in a rhythmic waltz. Even now, in the absence of people, you can almost hear the faint echoes of past conversations, the hum of gathered voices interspersed with laughter and subtle tension. While this cavernous room might initially appear nothing more than a noble gathering place, it functioned in many more roles. It was in this hall where feasts unfolded, where revelry met tradition in meals both sumptuous and sparing. The fragrance of roasted game and spices would have filled the air, blending with the dry tang of smoke from a roaring hearth. You can imagine the minstrels and jesters captivating the audience, spinning tales woven from both truth and fancy, each note and joke landing like carefully placed brushstrokes on a living tapestry of sound. Today, we might find the notion of dining in such grandeur a curious relic, a far cry from the modern dining experience. But in the medieval mind, the Great Hall was not just a place for eating, it was the social nucleus of the fortress, a space for affirming alliances and displaying wealth. The long dining tables, laid with pewter and pottery, were stages for social showmanship, a richly embroidered tablecloth, concealing undercurrents of diplomacy and intrigue. It's easy to imagine the hierarchy at play here, the stratification of roles and rank engraved boldly into the fabric of medieval etiquette. A place at the head table, closest to the lord or lady of the keep, signified favour and esteem, while others, farther away, shared whispers or plotted quietly amid the revelry. Historians still argue whether these structured interactions fostered genuine alliances or surface-level accords born of necessity. In any case, the Great Hall was a crucible for power dynamics, where a kind word or a misconstrued glance could ripple through the societal web. As you wander the length of the hall, your fingers brush against the tapestry-clad walls. Each tapestry tells its own story of battles won, lands conquered, marriages sealed more by convenience than love. The colours, though faded, still exhibit a vibrancy, testimony to the skill of the artisans whose work captured the hopes and hubris of their patrons. These woven narratives echo another time when storytelling thrived visually. Tales of victories and legendary beasts, of life cycles, woven tight into every thread. You pause to wonder at the gargantuan fireplace, its charcoal vestiges whispering about warmth once imparted. This hearth served not only as a source of heat and light, but as a focal point where life congregated. On frigid evenings it provided comfort, its flames rendering the draughty hall momentarily homelike. People would gather around, speaking in low tones, spinning yarns both old and newly conjured, coaxed into being by the glowing embers. As you stand, ensconced by memories of a world that once came alive in this very space, even your senses seem to awaken to invisible layers of echo and resonance. Information, news, and decisions flowed through these halls, even governed by those walls, tightly packed within. These exchanges, sometimes subtle, sometimes vivid, sculpted futures and dreams, influencing decisions both mundane and mighty. A gentle breeze stirs an errant scrap of parchment abandoned on a long table, turning it delicately one final act of storytelling among many in this ancient hall of echoes. Whether reciting heroic deeds or recounting the mundane, the hall shared each tale in equal breadth and dignity, commemorating life's ceaseless march. In the Great Hall you feel connected to those who lived, loved, laughed, and lingered long ago, each voice a note in the formidable chorus of history. The hall, beyond being merely grand, was a place of communion, ambition, and resilience, a living tribute to both trial and triumph in the ongoing saga of human complexity. As you leave the Great Hall and its echoing memories behind, your footsteps draw you towards the kitchens, the understated heartbeats of the medieval fortress. A slight warmth begins to invade the chill of stone as you approach this room. The scent of well-seasoned smoke and bygone feasts tickles your senses, even though the fires have long since cooled. This is where sustenance was crafted, and communal rituals around food unfolded. Entering the kitchens, you're immediately struck by the overpowering sense of functionality. The cavernous fireplaces are imposing yet familiar, echoing the hospitality extended to those who once inhabited these walls. Here, hearths hosted boiling cauldrons, and spits twirled with a mesmerizing rhythm over glowing embers. The air would have been thick with the aroma of roasting meats intermingled with the sharp tang of herbs and spices. These flavors tell tales of subdued extravagance and the perennial dance between scarcity and bounty. You can vividly imagine the kitchen crew, bustling under the unforgiving demands of the fortress's noble residents. Young scullions and seasoned cooks moved in a choreographed bustle, each immersed in tasks that spun the magic of a medieval meal. They'd sharpen knives with quickness and skill, mash ingredients with feverish intensity, and watch over pottage as if it held secrets from the earth itself. The clangor of wooden spoons against ceramic pots would have resonated under the roof made smoky by the constant fire. In these medieval kitchens, meals were both reflection and art. Mainstream historical records shed light on how feasting was a symbolic manifestation of a fortress's prosperity and power. Not just a matter of eating, grand feasts were venues for political maneuvers, where lords aimed to outdo each other with boastful displays, their tables heavy with breads, stews, and pies, each more intricately spiced than the last. Tucking into a rich venison pasty or the savory warmth of a pea pottage wasn't just sustenance, it was partaking in a ritual woven into the societal fabric, embellished with grandeur. Amid the hustle, a quirky fringe tidbit surfaces. Did you know that in moments of playful culinary daring, medieval cooks often crafted subtleties? These intricate creations were sculpted from sugar or formed into artistic designs more imaginative than delicious, designed to engage or impress during meals. They were medieval Instagram posts, capturing attention and sparking conversation with both their whimsy and a joker's mischievous glint. It's here, in this humming kitchen bustle, you grasp the unintentionally gourmet allure of the medieval diet. Ingredients we view as staples today, such as potatoes and tomatoes, were absent from these meals. Instead, cooks scaffolded their offerings around grains, legumes, and whatever meat the larders afforded, doused with a penchant for spices traded from afar. So too came the moments of humility, born in times of scarcity. Meals of pottage, thickened with barley or oats, were infused with wild greens, roots, and perhaps the odd slice of sausage or streak of bacon, if fortune allowed. As you turn your attention to the cooling shelves lined with cured hams and cheeses, you ponder the resilience of these people who revulsion turned ingenious methods for preservation. Salting, curing, smoking, they rendered each piece of food a valuable, enduring commodity. Historians often debate whether this potent mix of necessity and resourcefulness forged culinary innovation or reinforced social disparities. The banquet tables groaned beneath bounty, yet the majority survived on far humbler fare, creating a subtle hierarchy entrenched even within bites of bread. Walking out of the kitchen, the sound of distant clangs of an iron pot being shuffled translates into a soft rustle of departed inhabitants. The kitchen remains a silent guardian of medieval life, with its warmth, aroma, and even the small jokes passed between the bubbling broth, whisking tales through time. Movement lives here, captured in frozen instants, as these echoes of feasts long past resonate through the shared experience of human sustenance. As you step back into the eerie quiet of the empty corridors, the memory of those robust, vibrant kitchens stays with you. They remain a testament to a world of vibrant tastes and familial proximity, sewed upon the foundations of resilience and necessity, birthing a universal language that, even centuries later, speaks quietly to the richness of humanity. Leaving the warmth and bustle of the kitchens behind, you venture into the quieter, more solemn spaces of the fortress, where the clank of metal and whispers of valor linger in the air. As you enter the armory, your eyes adjust to the dim light filtering through narrow windows, illuminating rows of gleaming armor and weaponry on display. Here, the very essence of medieval chivalry and survival is forged from steel and iron. The armory is a place that tantalizes the imagination, with images of stout knights clad in full armor, their presence both imposing and noble. These knights didn't merely wear armor for its sheen. It was a necessary second skin, a tool as vital as the swords they wielded. The armor speaks a silent language of its own, recounting tales of the individuals who donned it and the lives it shaped, a symphony in metal echoing across the centuries. You walk past a suit of armor, its articulated plates glinting dully. The craftsmanship is awe-inspiring. Each piece fits seamlessly against the next, a testament to the artisans who painstakingly hammered and riveted every joint. This armor was more than mere protection. It was transformative, allowing knights to become icons of their era. They were the superheroes of medieval times, their armor signifying status and strength, yet it was also cumbersome and hot, a heavy burden of survival wrapped in steel. Despite its storied glory, adjusting to such armor was no simple feat. Wearing it required discipline and stamina. It's hard not to chuckle at the idea of a knight in shining armor struggling to mount a horse or to simply scratch an itch. You imagine them clattering and clunking their way through practice fields, every move producing a metallic chorus, part embrace, part prison. Beneath all the legendary laurels, the knight within was still human, just like you. Armor was not standardized. Each knight had a custom suit tailored to their physique and combat style. This introduces a quirky tidbit: the act of waiting impatiently to get suited up, akin to today's rush hour morning routine, but infinitely more trying with the aid of a squire or two. These squires were the unsung heroes in this story, tending to their liege's every need, ensuring each buckle was fastened and every joint allowed for the necessary freedom of movement, or as much as could be achieved when draped in metal. The armory also holds a treasure trove of weaponry, swords, lances, and various other tools of knighthood arranged with precision. Each has its own personality and purpose. The swords look both elegant and lethal, their edges honed to perfection. The craftsmanship tells its own tale, a testament to blacksmiths whose hands, though calloused, created these deadly works of art. As you examine a double-edged sword, its gentle taper leading to a deadly point, you can nearly feel the weight and balance in your grasp, a harmonious extension of a knight's will. Weapons, like armor, were carefully selected to match not only battle needs, but the prestige of those wielding them. Duels and tournaments transformed these metal implements into cultural symbols, tangible metaphors for medieval valor and nobility. Historians still muse over whether the cultural reverence for knights was more aspirational idealism or grounded in the stark necessities of medieval warfare. Either way, these knightly figures wielded both fearsome might and an aura of romantic allure. Walking further into the armory, you spot the round shields adorning the walls, emblazoned with heraldic designs that tell you as much about the knight's family and lineage as it does about the knight himself. These symbols served as a medieval version of a brand, identifier, and beacon rolled into one, ever vital on the chaotic theatre of battle. It might amuse you to think about how hot it must have been inside the armor during summer campaigns, or how cumbersome it was to relieve oneself while fully suited. Yet, this metal cocoon allowed knights to transcend human vulnerability, momentarily becoming an amalgam of human grit and industrious metal. Finally, you step back into the corridor, leaving the armory's stories of metal and might behind. The quiet of the empty hall momentarily surrounds you, yet you carry with you whispers of clanging battles and the ingenuity of an era encased in armor's weight, propelled by valor's invisible but palpable force, the enduring echo of knights and the dreams they dared forge in the fires of history. From the imposing strength of the armory, you find a gentle solace as you step into the chapel, a space suffused with an aura of quiet serenity and introspection. Here, the atmosphere is notably different, calm, almost sacred, as if the very air encourages contemplation and reverence. The chapel's stone walls frame a refuge for the spirit amid the fortress's martial hustle, its silence serving as a balm for the weary soul. Pews line the narrow sanctuary, their wood polished smooth by generations of worshippers who sought solace and guidance within these walls. You can almost picture the fortress's inhabitants seated here, from noble lords and ladies to humble servants. Each came seeking solace from their daily toils, uniting under the vaulted ceilings in a tableau of whispered prayers and hushed breaths. As you walk along the aisle, intricate stained glass windows catch your eye, casting vibrant slivers of colored light onto the stone floors. These windows are not mere decoration, they are windows into stories, each pane a narrative woven in shifting hues of crimson, azure, and gold. Biblical tales and saintly legends scroll across the glass, illustrating age-old parables and reminders of faith. It's an extraordinary tapestry in itself, merging artistry and devotion, a visual lexicon for those gathered in worship who couldn't read the sacred texts. The faint smell of beeswax candles lingers in the air, a soft reminder of rituals performed with quiet regularity. Feel the texture of time-worn worship as your fingers brush against melted wax riverbeds on ornate candelabras. Light fills the space, a testament to centuries of unyielding ritual, moments of penance, and hopes for forgiveness. For the medieval mind, this chapel was more than a place of prayer. It was where faith and life overlapped. Services punctuated the weekly grind, and the chapel served equally as a place for personal reflection and communal ceremony. Indeed, when disputes arose, mediators' voices traced the cool air up to these very rafters, seeking resolution through the gentle lens of moral and divine law. This sacred space was often curated with relics and icons, vessels thought to house some divine significance. A saint's bone, perhaps, or a shard of holy vestment. This attachment to holy relics held profound significance, anchoring the ethereal in the tangible and inviting a deeper connection to the divine. A fascinating element of the chapel is its dual role in both spiritual and secular realms. It is whispered that the ostensibly pious space held courtly intrigues and political maneuvering, a confluence of faith and ambition. Historians still debate whether appointments of chaplains and clerics stemmed more from genuine piety or political expedience. The two ideals intertwined inseparably, like ivy and stone, a medieval marriage of belief and strategy. Visitors to this chapel weren't limited to the pious or well-connected. The less affluent would find moments of respite here as well. Their lives, etched in simplicity and toil, found opportunity to touch the infinite beneath the chapel's serene domes, a sacred pause in human determination, a chance to transcend the mortal coil for a breath's span. As you step closer to the altar, you notice the exquisite simplicity of the stained tapestries lining the altar's edge. Here, artistry meets asceticism. You imagine monks meticulously weaving in humble devotion, offering their craft as both gift and supplication. Such tapestries further complicated the symbolism within these hallowed confines, woven prayers if you like. In a time when fortress life blended peril with prosaic moments, the chapel stood apart as an unaffected pillar, a place for contemplation and continuity in a world defined by shifting allegiances and martial clashes. It offered a stillness, a pause for the devoted and the desolate alike, a sanctuary where stone resonated not with the clang of armor, but the timeless embrace of undying hope. Leaving the chapel, the silence starts to recede, replaced once more by the fortress's distant hum. Yet within, you carry the still, whispering echoes of faith and sacrifice, a quiet acknowledgement of the enduring hold spiritual retreats have on history's narrative. Here, amid tapestries of stone and glass, the chapel's legacy endures. Beyond the measure of time, beyond the weight of time-worn stones, in the unyielding spirit of belief. As you step out of the chapel, the ambient tranquility gives way to a more somber atmosphere as you make your way toward the dungeons. Here, the very air seems to grow heavier, colder, as if the shadows cling slightly longer to the stories whispered in the stone. A chill that has nothing to do with temperature lingers, and the narrow corridor leads you deeper into these subterranean caverns where whispers of medieval justice, mercy, and cruelty echo faintly against the walls. Entering the dimly lit, low-ceilinged space, your senses adjust to the markedly different environment, the air tinged with an enduring dampness, carrying the scent of earth and old stone. Very different from the bustling liveliness of the fortress above, This space feels hushed and closed, with an undertone of subdued anticipation. The dungeons were the fortress's dark underbelly, a necessary but foreboding counterpart to the feasting halls and sunlit courtyards. Rows of thick iron bars run along the walls, marking where prisoners were once held. These cells, austere and bleak, tell of a time when justice was as unyielding as the stone walls that trapped innocent and guilty alike. It's easy to let the mind wander, painting pictures of prisoners once huddled on straw mats, shadows shrouding their expressions as they awaited an uncertain fate. The medieval justice system, complex in its simplicity, focused less on rehabilitation and more often on public deterrence. As you walk deeper into the labyrinthine passages, you feel the oppressive weight of history crowding around you. The dungeons weren't merely tools of oppression. In many ways, they were reflections of the societal fabric. While some inmates were held for crimes, such as theft or treason, others were victims of political maneuvering, caught in the tumultuous crosswinds of power struggles. It was a grim commentary on a world where power itself often overshadowed principle. Imagine the jailers, tasked with ensuring that none escaped the clutches of their stone sarcophagi. Their lives, too, were wrapped in the uncertainty and gravity of such responsibility. A job that demanded vigilance and offered few rewards deeper than their own survival. A cycle of duty reflected in the stone corridors they paced, made endlessly dull by mutual patience. Quirky antidotes might have punctuated their day, strange superstitions offering small comforts amid the eeriness of their subterranean dominion. In the dim light, you spy the subtle graffiti etched by desperate hands into cooler stone short messages, pleading for absolution, love notes to the distant world above, or prayers scratched out for eyes that would never see them, like little ghosts in the forgotten shadows. These unseen messages add whispers of humanity to each blank, windowless cell, reminding us that life, hope, and defiance thrived even in such grim places. Beyond the prison cells, you find spaces dedicated to interrogation or trials by ordeal, where guilt was often someone else's to perform, leaving fate as a simply cruel game. Such trials may leave one aghast today, subjecting the accused to harrowing tests meant to demonstrate innocence or guilt through feats of endurance or pain. Spectacles before an often wavering audience from within these medieval walls. Historians still argue whether these dungeons were authentically reflections of justice or merely repositories of fear and control, a testament to the darker aspects of human nature expressed in stone and iron. Times when questioning authority could warrant a stay within this subterranean abyss, brought a reality tied so closely, yet barely understood conceptually. Emerging from the grim darkness, you glance back over your shoulder, half expecting and almost wishing to see spectral echoes of shadowy figures caught between light and stone. The dungeons tell stories not just of physical captivity, but of human tenacity. A somber reminder of the intricate dance played between order and chaos, justice and oppression. While what remains is simply a hollowed relic of history's past principles, once you ascend the steps back into daylight, those stories of despair, hope, and resilience linger long in your mind, unspoken tales that quietly whisper on, yet unheard by the wind. Leaving the chilling echo of the dungeons behind, you emerge into a space that hums with a different kind of life, the weaving room. As you step inside, a cozy warmth wraps around you, carrying the soft rustle of fibers and the rhythmic clatter of looms. This room, often pulsating with the industrious energy of skilled hands and creative minds, was a vital heart of medieval life within the fortress walls. The weaving room is a testament to the blend of practicality and artistry that informed daily medieval life. Spools of dyed thread in shades of deep crimson, verdant green, and royal blue brighten the stone walls, infusing the air with a spectrum of both vibrant and subdued colors. The scent of wool and flax, earthy and organic, intermingles with the faint tang of lanolin, creating an olfactory tapestry that speaks of history and craft. Imagine the weavers at their looms, seated on rustic wooden benches, their hands deftly casting shuttle back and forth as they transform humble thread into finely woven cloth, each piece destined to become a garment, tapestry, or banner. Today, we might underestimate the skill involved in such tasks. Yet, these artisans possessed knowledge passed down through generations, mastery that balanced functionality with artistry. Weaving was a disciplined choreography, where every pattern served a purpose. Each design carried significance. The textiles produced in the weaving room were not merely fabrics, they were statements. Clothing and tapestries held the power to confer status, articulate allegiances, and even redefine social hierarchies. The fortress's inhabitants, from lordly figures to laborers, relied on these crafted creations to reflect or elevate their station within this society of stratified layers. One might assume the weaving room to be a simple place of labor, but it was here that conversations wove through the air as easily as the thread through the loom. These exchanges were motifs as delicate as the patterns being crafted, tales of village affairs, gossip wrapping scandal in soft murmurings, with the gentle clicking of the loom serving as a percussive backdrop. Though predominantly a female domain, weaving was not without its quirky tales. An odd scene might play out where nobles, draped in finery, wandered amid the looms, selecting designs for their next overgarments, perhaps humorously misplaced in such rustic surroundings. A rare divergence, where the privileged briefly touched upon labor, a medieval equivalent of today's fashion house tours. Historians still muse over whether weaving was primarily perceived as artistry or necessity. Its duality reflecting the essence of medieval life, wherein beauty and utility coexisted seamlessly. Data reveals the trade of textiles formed an economic backbone in the Middle Ages, carrying the influence both financially and culturally to lands afar. The hidden language within such textiles tells of travels, transactions, and transformations, offering us a glimpse into both personal and political stories. The process of dyeing the threads was another art within itself, relying on natural resources to infuse colors into raw textiles. Plants, insects, and minerals all played their part in this medieval alchemy, transforming inert threads into vibrant hues. You think back to the crocodile dung sunscreen joke, although less exotic. The dye components, like woad or madder, brought their own distinct challenges and triumphs, as weavers negotiated their stubborn essences into beauty. As you move deeper, your fingers brush against a partially finished tapestry, its surface a tactile journey of raised threads, intricate storytelling embedded within its folds. Here a knight on horseback, there a lady draped in elegant robes, all part of the grand narrative that spans across space and time, a silent theatre of life captured in fibre and hue. Although the room thrums quietly in the absence of its weavers and their animated discussions, an aura of serene industry clings to these walls, a nod to the endless cycle of hands and hearts devoted to creation. The weaving room, with its echoes of intent and whispered history, is a symphony where the medieval life unfolded a vivid testament to the interweaving threads of human history and the stories they silently continue to tell. Leaving behind the rich textures and colors of the weaving room, you find yourself back in the open, moving towards the fortress's towering walls. The high walls, standing as stoic sentinels of stone, emphasize their formidable presence the closer you approach. Built with resilience and precision, these walls were not only physical barriers, but symbols of strength and stability, silently proclaiming both protection and authority over the lands they surveyed. As you trace your hand along the cold, rough surface, you understand these walls were crafted to do more than just keep foes at bay. Their immense stature offers a protective embrace, shielding the fortress's inhabitants from the tumultuous world beyond, securing a modicum of peace within. But the walls had to be more than mere obstacles. They were a marriage of brute strength and cunning design. Your attention is drawn to the architecture, a tapestry of engineering marvel and medieval art. The layers of stone seem to narrate tales of strategic precision where the builders, with far-reaching foresight, anticipated the various methods of siege that might challenge their craftsmanship. Strategically placed murder holes and machicolations adorned the walls, enabling defenders to rain arrows or drop boiling oil upon assailants, silent voids that whispered of hidden threats. These defense mechanisms were crucial during sieges, drawing unfathomable patience from both attackers and defenders. Walls were battered with siege engines and sappers labored beneath them, hoping their cunning would succeed where brute force could not. Can you imagine the controlled chaos as projectiles arced through the sky, a medieval fireworks show of destructive elegance? The very height of these structures speaks to their long-standing purpose. They served not just to intimidate invaders, but also to project dominance and prestige in times of relative peace. Anyone approaching from afar would see the fortress long before reaching it, the walls a testament to the political power and unyielding permanence of their builders' ambitions. A quirky tidbit of medieval life comes to mind. During periods of protracted sieges, defenders would sometimes launch the bodies of diseased animals over these very walls, a grim but effective form of biological warfare intended to demoralize and infect the enemy. The fortifications, thus, played dual roles of protection and ingenious menace. Historians still engage in lively debate about whether such elaborate construction was as much about deterrence as defense, with the sheer imposure of these fortifications enough to prevent many sieges from even beginning. Walls like these clearly serve to bolster morale within and craft a narrative of power without, their shadows stretching across history. As you consider the thickness of the walls, you begin to appreciate that they were not merely dead ends, but spaces within themselves. Some walls contained tunnels and storage areas, vital arteries for both communication and sustenance during siege. They served as mini-fortresses, with their own internal logic and layers, far more than the sum of stone and mortar. As the wind teases your coat at the wall's edge, you consider the untold stories of those who guarded here, keeping watch over endless horizons, their eyes weary from scanning the distances, ears attuned to the silent language of the night, while their hearts sought comfort in the firm resolve of stone beneath their feet, a duty unwavering even as seasons turned and stars spun stories above the battlements. Turning away, you leave the massive silhouette of the fortress walls behind a monument to determination and dreams of indomitable will. Carried with you is the knowledge that these walls, though silent, crafted their own narrative against war and time, a narrative woven with strength, as enduring as the fortitude of those who once stood vigil high above, cradled between stone and sky. The towering strength and unyielding purpose of the fortress walls contrast sharply with the more personal realms you now enter, spaces where medieval life met everyday practicality. As you venture into the quarters dedicated to grooming and self-preservation, it becomes evident how the medieval world navigated the art of personal care. Shielded from the elements, this area blends function and simple comforts, an unexpectedly vivid kaleidoscope of medieval beauty and vanity. Imagine standing amid the bustling energy of this space, infused with a medley of scents wafting through the air. The sharp tang of natural oils, the earthy undertone of rosemary or sage, the occasional waft of lavender, meant to mask more mundane odors. This is where medieval society confronted perhaps its most human pursuit, the desire to present oneself with dignity and grace, even in times when practicality often won over luxury. Tables are strewn with the paraphernalia of grooming combs carved from antler or wood, little jars of unguents, and containers of crushed herbs. These small articles speak of the dedication to personal appearance, which was as much about status as cleanliness. In a world without modern conveniences, maintaining a semblance of respectability required effort and ingenuity. You can almost see the fortress dwellers working diligently to weave attractiveness out of the mundane threads of medieval life. A humorous note surfaces when considering medieval cosmetics. Lead-based powders provided that sought-after pale complexion among the well-to-do, a far cry from today's beauty standards, and certainly not recommended by modern dermatologists. The juxtaposition of luxury against risk seems a constant in historic beauty regimes. You smile, recalling that crocodile dung wasn't the only peculiar cosmetic choice across cultures and ages. Textiles and clothing were generally more than just personal style statements. Wearing brightly colored cloth not only conveyed wealth, but also served as a status symbol within the societal fabric of medieval life. The brighter your garb, the more successful you appeared. Fashion as a badge of affluence, skillfully stitched into the woven threads. The society within these walls placed immense significance on appearances, governed by an underlying hierarchy of hues, from the somber shades preferred by those lower in the hierarchy to the brilliant illumination displayed by nobles. Historians still argue how much emphasis was placed on personal adornment as an extension of identity. Was it largely euphemism for vanity, or a valiant reach for dignity amid adversity? Either way, the masquerade of appearance played its role in both blending and distinguishing the medieval populace. You imagine the weaving of tales within this space, shared quietly between those engaged in the nuanced dance of medieval self-fashioning. One can almost hear the light banter about methods and preferences, exchanged amid the rituals of energizing rosemary scalp massages or the careful reapplication of kohl around the eyes, echoes of personal tales woven into a broader historical tapestry. Let us not forget hair, an integral part of medieval grooming. Styles ranged from elaborate braids to modest veils, mirroring societal standing and cultural shifts just as closely as any tunic or gown. Long hair symbolized youth and vitality, while knights cropped their hair to accentuate their martial prowess, a tactile map of identity in each strand. Leaving these quarters, you carry an appreciation for the lengths to which people went to express individuality and maintain respect even amid such constraints. Each container of powder, each carved comb, was a welcome interruption, a colorful strum on the lute in a quieter pause during the narrative rhythm of medieval life, played out in scents, styles, and perceptions, telling stories long threaded into the fibers of history. And as you step into the daylight, you realize these fortresses weren't defined solely by stone and fortitude, but by the people who inhabited them, their desires, their appearances, their personalities interwoven into the fabric of their everyday lives, and their silent conversations with time echo softly around you. Stepping into the treasure trove of medieval opulence, you are enveloped by the glimmer of jewels and metals that whisper of a society where value was often etched in stones and gilded in gold. This is a world where personal adornment transcends mere decoration, becoming a language of its own, a manifestation of power, prestige, and even superstition. Here, precious jewels weren't just about beauty. They told stories, sealed alliances, and fueled ambitions. Inside this relatively secure chamber, you feel the reverence afforded to these objects, each piece displayed with the kind of care one typically reserves for objects of great significance. The air is tinged with a musty refinement, a scent mingled with the subtle metallic tang of gold and silver. Light bounces off arrays of ornate jewelry, rings set with gleaming gems, exquisitely crafted necklaces, and exquisite brooches adorned with heraldic symbols. In this dazzling display, each item reveals more than just its owner's wealth. Jewelry in medieval times conveyed influence and intention, be it in the form of a betrothal ring, heavy with promises and familial duty, or as a royal emblem, subtly affirming power and authority for those encrusted in regal circles. The nobility treasured these emblems not as accessorial luxuries, but as extensions of their persona, a tactile proclamation of their worldly status, etched in stone and metal. Lords and ladies wore these visual tokens as they navigated complex social hierarchies, where even the lightest tap of a ring against a goblet might denote more than a toast. Wearing jewels was a silent dialogue that conveyed unspoken intentions and relationships, a shimmering display extending beyond fashion into cultural and political theatre. Such items played pivotal roles, underpinning negotiations or sealing alliances, entwining politics with personal extravagance. This chamber is not only a showcase for gems, but also home to objects of tangible intimacy. Charms and amulets worn close to the heart, believed to offer protection against ill fortune. In the flutter of arcane symbols, you can detect the hint of medieval superstition, a belief in the mystical properties of stone that transcend time. This quirky practice perhaps strikes you as an ancient precursor to the luck charms of today, where sentiment and faith entwine with aesthetics. Amid the shimmering allure, we must remain cognizant of the painstaking labor underpinning this glittering splendor. Crafted by skilled artisans, each piece of jewelry demanded not only precious materials, but also a level of craftsmanship that took years to hone. Jewelers faced the daunting challenge of achieving delicacy in design while harnessing the potency of gemstones like sapphire, ruby, and emerald. The enigmatic appeal of these stones, studied as much for mystique as mineralogical identity, captivated medieval minds and incited opulent acquisitions and rivalries. Historians still ponder whether these jewels and artifacts were consciously perceived as personal treasures or institutional assets, a reflection of individual wealth or an unending testament to familial prominence and protection. In excavated chests and crypts, they tell a whispering tale of economics and ego, balanced at the edge of beauty's intricate embracing form. As you leave this chamber of folded luxury behind, something catches your eye, a delicate, intricately carved cameo brooch. Its surface relief, a miniature recollection of some bygone era, echoes back at you through the ages, a shadow of its wearer's presence engraved eternally. You realize that these jewels aren't just dormant adornments, but continue to hold the essence of their stories, migrating silently from softness of time to the hardened permanence of stone. Walking back into the larger chamber of the fortress, the contrast between simple stone and adorned metal is striking. Yet, it's here in these transitional spaces between memory and monument that the real treasure lies imbued with an enduring human desire to capture significance through variegated light, scintillating through time's passage like morning sunlight through stained glass window, and reminding you that within a ring or pendant lies not merely opulence, but the layers of history converged into brilliance. Emerging from the luminous splendor of medieval jewels, you wander into a different kind of abundance, the castle gardens. These verdant havens, enclosed within tall stone walls, contrast with the fortress's imposing demeanor. As you step into this oasis, a surge of vibrant greens and the gentle hum of life greet you. Here, the air is more fragrant, perfumed with the sweet and spicy aroma of herbs mingled with the scent of blooming flowers, a sensory symphony that delights and soothes. These gardens, often tucked away in quiet corners, yet vital to the fortress's sustainability, were far more than decorative. They were microcosms of medieval botany, where carefully curated plants served practical, culinary, and sometimes mystical roles. You see the neat rows of herbs, rosemary, thyme, sage, all cultivated with precision and purpose. These herbs were the versatile agents of medieval life, enhancing the flavor of simple meals and concocting remedies for various ailments. Consider the ingenuity at play here. The gardeners balancing elements of nature with the demands of their patrons, showcasing plants both modest and exotic in their sheltered arcs. You can almost see them tending to their charges, fingers stained with the rich earth, whispering pleasantries to goosefoot or costmary, every plant lovingly nurtured to play its part in the fortress's daily rhythm of life. It's within these earthy bounds that medieval folk devoted their time to both physical and spiritual nourishment. Gardens provided more than sustenance. They offered a retreat, a place where one might draw peace from tending to and harmonizing with nature, a verdant escape from the otherwise resilient and rigorous pace of fortress life. The garden's rich biodiversity underscores their significance. They weren't mere accident, but a deliberate design for utility. From the simple marigold, used in broths and poultices, to the more extravagant samphire, which may have garnished noble tables, each plant told a story of its own, both scientifically and socially. Historians, poring over ancient manuscripts, still debate whether fortress gardens were more utilitarian or indulgent, yet their mere existence speaks volumes. A quirky whisper echoes through the foliage. Medieval folk sometimes indulged in gardens of Hoax, where unexpected fruits or shaped root vegetables were cultivated, especially to surprise or amuse visitors. Early prototypes of surreal garden art. Such playful peeks into whimsy speak volumes about human nature, always finding joy even in the most practical spaces. Your eyes wander to the small orchard, where fruit trees bear modest gifts. Apples, pears, and quinces, jewels of the earth, arrayed under rustic foliage. In autumn, noblemen and peasants alike would gather to harvest such bounty, their collective efforts bridging societal divides. These fruits found themselves transforming into preserves or fermented into cider, extending their gifts well beyond the season's end. Unlike in today's electronically controlled settings, these medieval gardens relied on the natural dance of weather and time. Here, the allure lay not only in flowers and fruits, but in the balance required to maintain them, a trust in nature's capriciousness as much as its cycles. The fortress gardens stand as time-enduring symbols of life's persistence, where each seed planted was a testament to hope and resilience. You leave these botanical realms with their whispers of growing seasons, culinary alchemy, and the delicate art of patience, appreciating that in these careful, crafted spaces, the medieval world found both its reflection and repose. Stepping back through the archway, You carry with you not just the scent of perfumed leaves clinging to your senses, but a newfound understanding of how, even within a place renowned for its hard defenses, life thrived in vibrant, nurturing abundance. Here, in the fortress's green heart, where nurture balanced tradition, lived a softer side of the medieval spirit that entwined itself within humanity's enduring tale, nature's enduring testament to growth amid stone. Leaving the serene embrace of the gardens behind, you find your path leading to the barracks, the heart of the fortress's military might. Here, practicality and discipline reign supreme. The environment changes once more as you step into this bustling enclave, dedicated to the homely guardians who bore the fortress's fate squarely upon their shoulders. The air thrums with the weight of iron and exertion, undercut with the faint musky odor of leather and sweat. The garrison wasn't just a place for rest. It was a microcosm where the martial routine wove itself into every aspect of life. It is here that the echoes of shouted commands and the rhythmic clang of metal resonate, fragments of an unending cycle of preparation and readiness. As you wander among the rows of neatly arranged cots and weapon racks, you feel the underlying tension life on the knife edge between peace and the summons of war. The guardians of these walls, whether seasoned soldiers or fresh recruits, freshly conscripted into service, understood that tenure here was less a calling than a demand. Life in the garrison was regimented, yet bore the same blend of camaraderie and rivalry that binds all ranks in common cause. You sense the heartbeat of such historical life in the routines that defined it. Training exercises on chilly mornings, rituals of sharpening weapons, polish and repair, and the backdrop of laughter and banter between the men, though tinged with the sharp edge of understanding. These were men who lived closely with their mortality, their days a testament to duty, turned between the pages of human quietude and drama. One cannot ignore the sense of continuity among these soldiers. Wardrobe transitions from simple tunics and caps worn in leisure hours to chainmail and helmets donned before training. Each warrior's accoutrements not only served practical purposes, but held a deeply ingrained symbolism too. Emblems of ranks, stitched on cloth or shaped into clasps, provided identifiers within the tightly knit brotherhood, binding soldiers in shared identity beyond realm or rotunda. The sound of a whetstone on a blade can almost be heard, a rhythmic score that underscores conversations weaving through the barracks. The men quipped with dry humor about battles past, jesting like brave jesters of yore while steeling themselves for challenges unimagined, a quirk of martial life balancing Sikh and psyche. In the midst of training, or perhaps recovery in the mess hall, staved off by a trencher of thick soup stories, wove their magic, a narrative hall unto itself. Here, where trenchant tales and revelry met alongside simpler fare, the bard's call might suddenly overtake the room, an impromptu ode to glory, courage, and sly escapades, buoyed beneath helmets that shook with laughter or raised to eat imaginary crowns. Consider the discipline required to maintain order in such quarters, where tempers could flare as easily as a powder keg. Ordinance was strict, but the periodic loosening allowed a fleeting respite, echoing drone-wrapped memories firmly in heroic veils. Historians often debate how the life of a garrison would compare to that of the free man, a comparative immersion where choice found itself shepherded. They argue whether this life appealed to a sense of honor or was merely accepted as part of life's unavoidable consequence. This ongoing discourse rides the continuum made vibrant by those willing to bear arms in single task or tribal tenacity. The passage of time gifted stories that spanned wars and peace. The constancy of garrisons remained a comforting tradition through shifting allegiances. A joke comes to mind. They say the only thing that marched faster than news of a military victory was the gossip shared by the castle's dependents. As you return to the open air, leaving the hum of the barracks behind, you carry with you an insight into the lives of those guardians whose vigilance and camaraderie, hard won and hard kept, defined the strength not only of fortresses, but of the empires they buffered. In the garrison, life thrived under the shadow of impending call, a collection of ordinary men striving for valor's ideal, set within the tapestry of time and tenacity. Beyond stone and steel, the passage of human resolve captured the cadence of history itself. Leaving the disciplined cadence of the garrison behind, you step into a place where history intertwines with the warmth of storytelling, the hearth. This central fireplace, hearty and welcoming, radiates a glow that draws you in with its promise of comfort and community. Here, the flickering flames cast a gentle dance of light and shadow, weaving a tapestry of warmth and connection that has pulsated through the ages. The hearth serves as the fortress's living heart, where stories were shared and lives were closely knit in the intimate embrace of firelight. The air is heavy with the nostalgic aroma of burning wood, mixed with hints of roasting meat and baking bread. The fragrance cradles you, transporting you through time to nights spent gathered around, where the aroma signaled both sustenance and solace in equal measure. As you stand before the massive stone fireplace, you imagine the buzzing energy of past gatherings. Kids and elders alike encircle the blaze, their faces lit with the resonating warmth of camaraderie. It's easy to conjure images of a crowd leaning in to hear tales spun by gifted storytellers, their words so rich in detail. You can almost feel the rush of wind from a knight's galloping steed, or the thunderous applause following a decisive victory for which tales are told. These stories were more than mere entertainment. They were the cornerstone of tradition, the hearth, a sacred stage where the spoken word braided past into the present. The narratives encompassed not only valor and triumph, but also craft and sometimes cheeky humor. A jest about a notorious noble's inflated ego blending with myths of valorous knights, as a fitting reminder of humanity's enduring penchant for sharing wisdom with wit. Around this fire, ballads and epics were birthed in flame-lit symphony. Each member of the fort, with eyes sparkling in the firelight, participated in the ancient and timeless practice of oral storytelling, a cornerstone of medieval culture, where listeners of all ages lived within tales and lessons. The morality play of the times made personal, immediate, and real. The hearth doubled as a multifaceted hub, serving not only as the venue for stories, but also a place of gathering where family and kin would break bread together. Meals here were intimate affairs. Straight from the fireplace, a cauldron simmering with stew, a spit turning slowly under the watchful eyes of hungry children. The snapping of twigs beneath flames echoed the constant bounce between tale and toil. It wasn't unusual to pass different evenings with the echo of heavier topics discussed. Political debates often found footing around the hearth, and lighter tales rhythmically drew parables from humor to philosophy, all set against the consumptive crackling of a purging fire. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the ribbing laughter, a grandfather's gruff ha-ha, cutting through tales of adventure and wily subterfuge. Yet, beyond laughter and learning, the hearth served a more elemental need. It lit the darkness, offering warmth against the chill and assurance against solitude. It created a buffer amidst conflict beyond the walls and within the mind. The fire, constant in flicker and glow, symbolized permanence and safety, turning the hearth into a sanctuary woven with the threads of community and cultural continuity. For historians, the hearth stands as a metaphor for the social binding of medieval life. Does it preserve a memory of shared identity, or is it merely where survival found its flame? Such questions linger, meditating on human connection filtered through the fires of ages. Embers remain both subject and syllable of their endless telling. As you turn to leave, the echoes of history weave with the warmth that follows, felt in the faded footfalls leaving the hearth's comforting embrace. It is here that life converged most tangibly, a microcosm, where time crafted ribbons of imagination and meaning, where humans found a voice alongside their shadow cast by firelight on stone. It remains, in many ways, the cradle of our storytelling heritage, holding the essence of medieval life within its steady flicker, a timeless dance between light, shadow, and sound. Moving away from the heartening glow of the hearth, you find yourself returning to the austere functionality of the fortress's defences. This time, you are drawn to the intricate architecture of the battlements, those notched parapets that line the upper walls. These are more than mere structures. They are the crowning achievement of medieval military engineering, crafted to withstand and repel the chaos of siege warfare. As you walk along the battlements, you feel the wind whip past, carrying stories of fierce defences mounted here in centuries past. Each crenel, the alternating open spaces and solid sections, served a purpose. Originally envisioned as mere gaps to conceal archers, these battlements allowed defenders to launch arrows and other projectiles while keeping themselves hidden from the enemy. This ingenious design represented the fine line between visibility and concealment, where form met function in stone and mortar. The architectural brilliance of the battlements was no accident. The dimensions and placements were calculated not just for defense, but for psychology. An enemy looking up at these fortifications would see a formidable wall that discouraged approach through its sheer, daunting presence. This visual barrier, though simple in concept, has been replicated and evolved through centuries of fortress building, testifying to its enduring significance. A quirky detail to consider is the practical yet eccentric variety of projectiles hurled from such high perches. In addition to arrows, defenders might lob rocks, hot sand, or boiling oil, a medieval twist to home defense systems that ensured the battlements served as a platform for creativity as much as warfare. These were not merely weapons, but tools of strategy, each chosen for its ability to exploit the weaknesses of assailants. As you peer through a crenel, you see the vast expanse of land below and appreciate how the battlements offered a vantage point crucial for spotting distant threats and signaling with flags or smoke. The panoramic view stretched like a scroll of medieval cartography, where boundaries, allies, and adversaries painted the earth with a tapestry of conflict and diplomacy. Here on high, a soldier's silhouette stood as both sentinel and symbol, a last line between peace within and peril without. Historians still argue over whether these structures' primary purpose was offense or deterrence. Was more weight given to their ability to repel invaders or intimidate them from the start? Battlements crafted a narrative of power through presence alone, a silent guardian against the tumultuous backdrop of medieval ambition. In this wind-whipped realm of stone, consider that the battlements house not only warriors but stories. Picture sentries patrolling them in the night, engaging in idle talk under starry canopies while remaining ever vigilant, a kaleidoscope of loyalty, bravado, and humanity hemmed in by stone. The parapets, etched by time and weather, have become reflective surfaces for past fears and futures conquered. As you walk along the wall, imagine the physical toll such watchfulness took: the chill of the wind, the ache in arched backs, and the steadfast endurance required to uphold vigilance through both mundane hours and graver times. Yet beneath the stoic exterior beat hearts familiar with the rhythm of hope and heartache amidst shadows cast by each torch flickering across the stone edifice. You tread back from the battlements, descending toward the inner sanctum of the fortress, carrying with you echoes of military marches, whispered conversations lost to the winds, and the silent knowledge that herein lie architectural sentiments immortalized in the play of light and shadow through crenellations. The battlements exemplify a fortress in both heart and spirit, where courage, endurance, and defensive genius combined seamlessly above the mundanity of daily life to forge meanings hidden away quite tightly in stones of defensive transcendence. Wrapped gloriously under the sky, they remain a testament to the complex interplay between fear and fortitude that crafted human history from rock and resolve. Having wandered among the intricate labyrinths of military fortitude, your journey through the fortress leads you now to an area buzzing with the energy of exchange, the medieval market. As you take in the sight of bustling stalls and the lively throng of vendors and customers, you can almost feel the vibrant pulse of commerce and community that define this critical space. The market represents a departure from the stoic architecture of defense into the fluid flow of goods, people, and ideas. The pathways underfoot are well-trodden, worn smooth by countless feet, seeking goods and gossip alike. The air is charged with a tapestry of sounds, the lively banter of haggling, the clink of coins exchanging hands, and the cries of hawkers extolling the virtues of their wares. Arrayed before you are stalls brimming with an eclectic assortment of goods. Produce in earthy tones and vibrant hues forms rich tapestry-like displays, baskets brimming with apples and cabbages, herbs tied with twine, and spices that tell tales of distant lands. The market is a feast for the senses. The melding aromas of freshly baked bread, tangy cheese, and roasting meats waft through the air. As you walk among the vendors, the texture of medieval commerce begins to unfold. This market is where local villagers and those from nearby settlements converge for trade, swapping news along with goods. Such markets were the lifeblood of communities. Offering more than just sustenance, they were places where cultures crossed paths and merged. Each seller you encounter seems to have a story as colorful as the wares they offer. A merchant might deftly lay linen dyed in shades that rival sunset skies, telling tales of dye secrets passed down through generations. Another boasts of rare spices brought leagues across land and water, a relic of trade routes that defined destinies as much as they did dinners. Some of these, like the costly saffron or pepper from the Orient, represented more than flavor. They symbolized status and the reach of dominion. A quirky insight emerges as you observe merchants ingeniously bartering for common goods with uncommon zeal. A sack of grain for a bolt of cloth, a jug of ale for medicinal herbs. The marketplace became a theater of negotiation and wit, with each transaction a duet of fortune and foresight, a medieval dance where a quick mind was as essential as a quick tongue. Historians often debate whether these markets served as reliable economic barometers or were mere microcosms of feast and famine. They marked the rise and fall of prosperity just as keenly as they brokered dreams into morsels of reality. An eternal balancing act, all etched in public discourse and determined in private pause. As you watch a customer sample wares, the roles of merchant and shopper become intertwined. Each must wear multiple hats. Consumers display discernment as savvy traders, even amid barter, weaving a complicated web of socio-economic fabric defined by medieval business acumen. It is a lively exchange that echoes through time. The market also served as a mingling ground of ideas. News traveled along with goods, conversations flowing like rivers, carrying dispatches of what lay beyond the fortress walls, softly stitching the fabric of medieval society together. Imagine a bard reciting tales of yore amid the cacophony of trade, threading new strands into the ever-growing tapestry of shared narratives. As you wander, immersing yourself in this microcosm of medieval society, wrapped exquisitely in noise, scent, and color, you witness not just commerce but community, a place where humanity was at its most authentic and alive. The damage of the fortress, both resilient yet reformative within and without, here in the market, showcased a thriving cross-section of life. Stepping back from the vibrant tangle, the air feels charged with the day's exhilarations, a testament to the simple yet intricate dance that encapsulated the fortress within its unique heartbeat. In trade, these walls bore more than defense. They held the resonance of a society at work, a testament to progress and presence, all as tangible today as it was then. Encased within the harmonious chaos, the market reflects human life in its purest form, complex and vibrant, resilient yet intimately woven, a commerce shared through centuries harmonized symphonically in storied success. As you traverse through the remnants of the medieval market and the bustling interplay of commerce and camaraderie, you find yourself following a quieter, more somber path. The intricacies of human history have taught us that life in medieval times was often shadowed by invisible threats, diseases, and plagues that crept through the fortress like unseen marauders. The fortress's narrow lanes and densely packed quarters were fertile ground for these silent invaders, forcing residents to confront mortality in ways that are both strikingly different from and hauntingly familiar to our modern sensibilities. The air in this part of the fortress feels markedly heavier, as if it carries the weight of long-lost whispers about past struggles, each echo a fragment of history, whispering subdued tales of resilience and devastation. You can almost sense the unease that would pervade such spaces when sickness took hold, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life bound within even the strongest stone walls. Disease was an inevitable part of medieval life, with plagues like the Black Death reducing populations to their knees with devastating efficacy. It wasn't just the bubonic plague that instilled fear. Maladies like dysentery, smallpox, and influenza also emerged as formidable foes. These ailments swept through communities seemingly without regard for rank or riches, serving as stark levelers of humanity. As you wander through this quieter area, it's important to recognize the collective trials faced by fortress inhabitants. The density of living quarters and the flow of people both in and out of the fortress created an environment ripe for contagion. The struggle against disease catalyzed rudimentary public health responses, like quarantining, sanitation efforts, and adaptations in hygiene practices that, under duress, leaned toward progress. Attempts at prevention and care, fluctuated between practical and peculiar. Herbs like lavender and rosemary, once celebrated for their culinary and aromatic virtues, found themselves pressed into roles as makeshift sanitary barriers. In the face of plague, belief mingled with desperation, saw garlic hung over thresholds, and windows adorned with sweet-smelling posies designed to ward off ill humours. A curious practice of the era was the notorious plague doctor, clad in a mask, stuffed with fragrant herbs, with a long bird-like beak, meant to protect the wearer from miasmas. This spectral figure etched its place in history, serving as both symbol and symptom of medieval attempts to demonstrate authority over the unseen. Historians often argue over whether these efforts were driven by medical understanding or mere superstition, a jumble of trial, error, and hope intertwined in actions materialized within frightened communities. It's as if each gesture, however small or unconventional, carried with it a desperate longing for control and security amidst the chaos of disease, a dance between known and unknown, with life itself as the stake. During outbreaks, communities drew closer, even as the disease drove them apart. The social fabric, though strained, proved resilient. Neighbors reached out through heavy wood doors, priests offered absolution over distance, and families adapted their grieving to the quiet comfort of candlelit vigils. As you pause and reflect amid these shadowy passages, you understand that within the fortress's seemingly impassive walls lay laments left to history but not forgotten, stories that tell of both survival and loss, of societies that continue to find ways to reclaim life even when so much was taken, cycles mirrored through history's lens, where triumph of hope offered shelter from the black tide of despair. Emerging back into the open air, carrying with you the weight of shadows left amidst thick walls, offers insight into human resilience's defining strength. Medieval fortresses, while built to protect against external forces, became silent witnesses to an eternal battle, the unseen war waged between humanity and the scourge of disease. Through it all, the endurance of spirit, ingenuity, and community shines through stark resilience found among the embers of challenges faced time and again. Looking over those high fortress walls, you recognize that these echoes of the past continue to illuminate and shape the story of life's enduring voyage, one marked indelibly by persistence, reflection, and unyielding hope. Leaving the solemn shadows of past afflictions behind, your journey continues to a place brimming with potential, imagination, and future promise, the Fortress School. Here, nestled within the firm embrace of the walls, a quiet revolution unfolded, rooted in parchment and ink, where learning became a bridge between centuries, spanning the past and the promise of what lay ahead. As you approach the educational heart of the fortress, you can almost hear the quiet murmur of lessons from centuries past, the echo of youthful voices repeating Latin verb conjugations, or reciting passages from illuminated manuscripts. The air here carries an inquiring energy, a vital static that hints at the transformative power of knowledge, a cornerstone upon which futures were built, word by word, insight by insight. The medieval fortress school was a rare yet essential refuge of scholarship, where education was both a privilege and a vehicle to elevated life beyond mere subsistence. In stark contrast to the wider medieval world, where literacy rates were fairly low, this space offered the select few an opportunity to engage with the written word, nurturing minds to challenge, analyze, and dream. Education was reserved for those of noble birth, or those on the ecclesiastical path, the traditional gatekeepers of knowledge and power. Here, learning wasn't just an academic endeavor. It was a rite of passage that shaped identity and wielded influence. Within the modest chamber, wooden desks bear faint impressions of quills and ink. Scrolls and books line the shelves in an unassuming array, their delicate pages holding layers of wisdom accumulated through meticulous transcription and study. This was a contrast to our modern search for knowledge, a slow, methodical process of copying and preserving thoughts, helmed by minds dedicated to posterity. Monks in nearby monasteries, painstakingly illuminating manuscripts, served as the technical backbone in this laborious pursuit of preservation. A quirky tidbit you might find intriguing: teachers sometimes employed mnemonic devices to aid memory, witty rhymes or imaginative allegory that offered both instruction and entertainment. The medieval song school reflected this concept, where music became a vehicle for knowledge, infusing learning with melody and rhythm that resonated long after the lessons had ended. The curriculum extended beyond basic literacy to encompass noble arts, arithmetic, and philosophy, guided by the ancient works of Greece and Rome. Imagine a learned scholar regaling pupils with tales of geometry, making sense of the stars above, or the poetry of nature's cycles, amid a medieval worldview that resonated with both the tangible and the divine. Historians still argue about the extent to which these fortress schools influenced broader societal shifts, whether they served solely the elite or planted seeds for greater intellectual movements that would emerge in later centuries, such as the Renaissance. Yet in these stone-fortified halls, knowledge, like seeds scattered in a pensive meadow, began to germinate, its blossoming a metaphor for humanity's collective evolution toward understanding. Education represented a form of power and prestige, its whispers roaming corridors and minds alike, facilitating a cultural exchange tethered to the pursuit of wisdom. It often ignited curiosity, beckoning young minds to question assumptions and explore topics beyond the known. Even within the rigid confines of medieval hierarchy, learning cultivated an echo of progress wherever it burrowed. As you stand amidst these echoes of parchment rustling, you consider the quiet yet profound legacy wrought in this setting, a testament to humanity's unending quest for knowledge in various forms. The sanctuary of learning it offered continues to ripple through time, long past its material presence. Stepping back into the present from this fertile ground for ideas and potential, you carry within you the echoes of those who were, for a brief time within these walls, allowed to explore what lay beyond the horizon, their discoveries reverberating softly, reimagining borders, and awakening the world from sleep as dreams of ink spread through the medieval mind. And thus, they contributed to weaving the enduring tapestry of humanity's scholarly journey, inspiring modern echoes of thought and intellect, tracing back through ages to these walls of reflection, inquiry, and timeless growth, born within the fortress's sheltering embrace. As you move from the quiet halls of learning, exploring the fortress, you find yourself immersed in a completely different ambiance. The day fades into night, shrouding the fortress in an aura of mystery and potential, a space transformed by the dimming light and the deepening shadows. Nighttime in the fortress is a blend of tranquility and intrigue, as darkness covers the stronghold with a cloak of secrecy and subtle anticipation. The fortress, vibrant and bustling during daylight, shifts into a different tempo under the star-strewn sky. Mystic silhouettes and shadows accentuate its ancient stone architecture, while torches sputter to life, casting a warm, flickering glow on the courtyard and walls. The air carries the crispness of evening chill, mingled with the pervasive scent of wood smoke and dew settling over the stones. As people retreat into their quarters, a different kind of life begins to stir. Night is when plans are drawn, and whispered conversations carry secrets through the stone corridors, some speaking of ambition, others of mere survival. Under the cover of night, the fortress becomes a world layered with unspoken possibilities, where motivations emerge unnoticed by the untrained eye. The courtyards, now quieter, host those few who are out under necessity or choice. You can sense the furtive movements of night watchmen making their rounds, eyes cast outward toward the darkened landscape as they listen for sounds that may drift through the night's stillness. Each creak and rustle holds meaning here, a language learned under shadow and taught by moonlight. You visualize the glow from the keep as castle nobility continues their evening vespers or indulge in private conferences. Discussions of strategy or matters of state often find time under the moon's vigil, where grand designs and shadowy dealings are entertained. In this realm, history often records decisions made under cloak and candor, their effects rippling beyond the stone walls with each dawn. Yet, it's not all strategy and secrets. Within homely chambers, hearth fires burn low, painting familiar warmth on the faces gathered before them. Families take solace inside, voices hushed in intimate chit-chat or lullabies sung softly in the comforting embrace of time-worn lullabies. There is gentleness here, a moment of refuge that transcends the fortress's broader purpose. One begins to imagine the timelessness of medieval night and the succinct harmony it offers amid the mechanical hum of day's chaos. Nighttime was then as it is often seen even now, a space for dreams to unfurl as sleep claims its place beside longing and hope. Night in the fortress also nurtures an intriguing cast night watchman, bakers preparing their next batch of bread for the morrow, and the occasional rogue slipping unnoticed through the shadows. The lines between roles blur as everyone dances under the same celestial sphere, their narratives converging for just a few hours, when dreams and reality overlap. Historians still argue over the extensive activities undertaken during these late hours. Was it a time known more for clandestine necessity than imaginative retreat? In either realm, the atmosphere resounds with the soft, unending pulse of medieval life, the fortress itself as much a participant with the night as the individuals within its walls. Stepping back from the realm of moonlight and whispered truths, you carry with you the understanding that night in the fortress was never simply a corridor between days. It was its own world, vibrant, layered, and teeming with a quiet energy that fed the dreams of those who dwelt beneath its peaceful veil. And so, as you glance back over the stone battlements kissed by moonlight, you know these nocturnal hours serve as a poetic reminder that life, in its simplest and most complex forms, transcends the passing of time. Within the fortress's majestic embrace, night breathes, watching over the slumbering rest of those sheltered within, its watchful shadows painting stories beneath the stars. The calm, dreamy atmosphere of night transitions into the first soft blush of dawn as you delve into the secretive domain of the masons, the unsung architects of the fortress's grandeur. These craftsmen skillfully shaped stone and dreams, transforming raw earth into monumental fortifications that defied time and adversaries. As you enter their world, you begin to uncover a realm of meticulous craftsmanship, imbued with mystery and artistry. The mason's domain is a scatter of tools and plans, where chisels and mallets lie ready for work, beside intricate designs painstakingly scribed onto parchments. Despite the apparent disorder, there's a methodical rhythm to this workspace. The scent of newly hewn stone mingles with the dusty air, adding an earthy aroma that clings to the edges of its environment, a constant reminder of the labor's tangible and transformative nature. Imagine here the flurry of activity as masons discussed techniques and shared knowledge. They shaped each block with a precision that belied the primitive tools in their hands, drawing upon ancestral skills handed down through rigorous apprenticeship. They were more than mere laborers. They were essential to the medieval world, a fraternity bound to the stone's solemnity, weaving strength from rock. Despite the high stakes and exacting expectations placed upon them, the masons were known for their camaraderie. Much like modern artisans, a shared humor bound them together, lightening the arduous task with jests and tales passed around in the melody of their work. You can almost hear the echoes of their laughter, buoyed amid the rhythmic clinking of hammers against stone. These skilled laborers held not just craft, but an aura of enigma, symbolized by their connection to secret knowledge and guarded techniques. Their mysterious practices have inspired myths and legends that linger even today. The camaraderie within was intensified by a shroud of loyalty, precincts protected by unwritten codes that nurtured both artistry and mystique. A quirky aspect of their trade lies in the decorative flourishes, or so-called mason's marks, personal imprints, left by these craftsmen on stones, not for visibility, but as a signature within their clandestine lives. These small carvings still tell the tale of individuals curating soaring arches or hiding beneath the surface, an echo of personal pride indelibly binding artist to artifact. Historians still debate over the social status of masons within medieval society. Some regard them as mere laborers, while others suggest their skills granted them elevated respect, often living peripherally to feudal orders. They balanced between practicality and creativity, their lives shaping fortresses and, by extension, their very civilization. As you explore this domain, you're struck by the notion that masons bridged the gap between physical labor and ethereal artistry, crafting narratives into the fortress's walls, engraved subtly between integrity and beauty. Stone by stone, these artisans built more than just structures. They crafted a legacy, a written history, impervious under the weight of time. Stepping away from the mason's realm, you walk under arches and along corridors that bear the marks of their hands, realizing that a fortress was an enclave of human tenacity, communal by design, where each cut and caress of stone shapes threads of a communal tapestry. The fortress stands whole, not only because of them, but for them, a tribute, entwined with lineage, labor, and singular resolve. Their lasting work invites reflection on the stories told not by words, but by enduring structure, a steadfast dialogue between an architect and future eras, as elegant and complex as any story recited in the hustle of history's quiet peace. As you move further into your journey, remember that the masons crafted more than fortresses. They crafted a world etched in stone, a testament to the enduring spirit of human endeavor. Pressing forward from the realm of the masons, you step into a world where stories coalesce into permanence, a space where history finds form in the very stone itself. Here, within the formidable fortress, you begin to appreciate a new dimension of its architecture, where every stone holds a testament, and every corner echoes with the tales of those who laid and shaped them. You find yourself drawn to the subtle marks and inscriptions that pepper the fortress walls, those silent attestations left by skilled hands. These markings, though perhaps overlooked by the unobservant, reveal their own narrative, offering intimate glimpses into the lives of craftsmen who painstakingly shaped each stone. Some inscriptions are masons' marks, mysterious ciphers cryptically entwined into the fortress's fabric. Others are more straightforward, sometimes denoting quarrier details, or simply recording the stone was set in place, time captured in tangible frame. Running your fingers across their rough patina, you feel a connection, an intricate tapestry knitted into stone, forged by human perseverance and transcendence. Each stone carries a whisper of its journey from quarry to stronghold, its weight silently narrating tales of resourcefulness and engineering acumen. In the delicate dance between hand and stone, the fortress rose as a powerful proclamation of human will, triumphing over nature's obstinate rock. Each block becomes a storyteller with no voice, yet the palimpsest of its surface speaks eloquently. The fortress itself evolves into a tapestry, layered with stories from different hands, both strategic placement and nuanced artistry woven into its steadfast demeanor. This reinterpretation of narrative, carved into literal history, remains a timeless monument to the interplay of labor and law. It's here you confront the compelling realization that stones are more than construction elements. They are vessels of nuanced history. Some bear evidence of earlier structures, repurposed and reincarnated into present fortifications, echoes reverberating from even older pasts. Others feature artistic flourishes, grandiose flourishes within recessed niches where sculptors seized inspiration and took heart from the permanence of the medium. Consider a particularly finely etched detail, a scrolling motif, intertwining flora and linear script. The motif itself, whether a flourish of aesthetic whimsy or a deliberate symbolic invocation, embodies artistic intent and technical excellence, preserving the craftsman's quiet dialogue within the fortress's grandiose conversation. Each carving transforms stone from utilitarian purpose into vibrant tableau, adding a touch of humanity to the austere visage. Historians continue to debate whether these embellishments were simply adornments, serving visual enjoyment, or carried deeper, perhaps even esoteric significance. As observers and scholars alike unravel the undertones hidden in the stone's narrative, the duality becomes clear, a stronghold against time's erosion, and an eloquent celebration of it. You might wonder if, among these layered stones, conversations long since spoken linger like invisible ink, tracing outlines of events, enfolding in the intervals between foundation and aspiration. The knowledge etched in stone serves as a symbolic reminder of perseverance, a form of living anthology that transcends its makers. As you leave these ancient walls and touches of humanity further behind, you find yourself carrying forward the stories anchored in every cornerstone. You're stepping past a visceral understanding that while stones may be immutable, the stories they bear are as dynamic and evolving as the people who crafted and lived within them. In this sacred covenant, one feels the gentle merging of past and present, cast in permanence by craftsmanship akin to a sculptor at the divine juncture where earth meets sky, the fortress's stonework stands uncompromising, a sentient archive of time, where human aspiration weighs tangible and dreams etch eternal. It whispers still along the morose corridors as you pass, leaving stone storytellers to watch over echoes reverently and unintentionally relived through one's traversed timeline. The journey through the whispering stones of history leads you to yet another vantage, one where observation meets aspiration high above the fortress in its towering spires. Here, the towers of observation beckon, rising confidently against the sky, embodied as bastions not just of physical power, but of panoramic vision and strategic foresight. As you ascend the spiral staircase within one of these towers, each footfall echoes with purpose, a gradual ascent that grants you a growing perspective, both physical and metaphorical. The air becomes fresher as you climb, carrying with it a blend of urgency and anticipation, borne by countless prior sentinels who had stood watch here through shifting tides of peace and war. Upon reaching the summit, you are greeted by a vista that unfolds in breathtaking majesty. Here, the world stretches out in every direction. Valleys unspooled like verdant quilts, forests threading distant horizons, and rivers weaving silver lines across a verdant tapestry. With the fortress beneath you, it is as though you have ascended curiosity itself, transcending earthly bounds. The towers offered much more than a commanding view. They served as cardinal points of the defense stratagem, pivotal guard posts from which defenders could spot threats well before they approached the fortress walls. Each tower was a node where earthly effort met celestial guidance, sun, stars, and season often guiding strategies etched by their contours. From this height, you gain a glimpse into how the watchman deciphered the living map below, eyes ever vigilant for glints of armor on the horizon or a curling tendril of smoke from unfamiliar campfires. Signals dispatched through flags, horns, or fires carried the tower's eyes and ears across mixed terrain, a whisper, thin lifeline, connecting a fortress nerve center to a kingdom living through mutual interdependence. The towers were both subjugate to and shapers of broader history. From these heights, news of shifting allegiances, advancing armies, and welcome peace would shape decisions within the fortress walls, aligning it with larger stories across the rolling landscapes. It juxtaposed temporal power with the ethereal march of time, yet towers also provided respite, equally by day as by night. To be sentry beneath the sky's waltz fed a quiet soul to inquisitive minds. Here, a moment of reflection might find those perched aloft, considering futures beyond earthly conflict, adventurers, dreaming beyond known horizons, embracing the spacious solitude between clouds. It's a delicate balance between vigilance, pressed duty, and mind-nurtured aspirations enacted within these stone realms high above. Here laid whispers of what thresholds might feel endless, the moon witnessing promises made to stars by eyes fatigued yet fulsome. Historians often reflect on towers as vestiges of historical grandeur, yet they were also vital points of human experience within architecture. Were they simply watchtowers, or spiritual promenades between terrestrial duty and metaphysical musings? Discussions highlight towers' transcendental contributions and concepts, traceable through time. As you step away from this lofty observation post, you realize these towers of observation stand as silent witnesses to both the storms and serenity that rolled through medieval life. They merge the solidity of stone with the intangibility of aspiration, monumental sentinels that continue to bridge the earth and heavens long after their initial purpose has subtly shifted. Indeed, these towers remind us that perspective is both sacred and shifting. Like trees leaning sunward, they yearn beyond their roots to touch fleeting whispers of infinity. The stone, wrought by hand to pierce skies, constructs not merely architecture but aspiration, cradling both mariner's hope and sentinel's duty, colored by twilit imagination. From their precipice, our gaze finds tethering, resonating through yesterday's visions into tomorrow's dreams. Descending from the aerial heights of the towers, you find yourself drawn to the subtler art of medieval communication. Here, within the confines of stone walls, lay a vibrant tapestry of information, exchange resilient, intricate, and ingeniously adaptive. The fortress, bustling with its own life, served as a hub for messages both grim and grand, aligned and discreet, where every whisper could ripple across the lands. As you explore this intricate web, it becomes clear that communication in the medieval fortress was simultaneously rich in its simplicity and sophisticated in its execution. Without the technology we take for granted today, the fortress relied on a blend of oral tradition, cryptic symbols, and skilled courier networks adept at maneuvering through both the landscape and political intrigue. Imagine horn signals reverberating through the corridors, each note a code decipherable only by those schooled in this acoustic language. Horns could summon aid or decree alarm, their echoes traveling swift and unchecked across courtyards and beyond. The resonance of a carefully chosen note commanded immediate attention, a primitive precursor to the modern ringtone. Within the storied rooms, heralds occupied positions of profound importance, bearing the weight of critical news across considerable distances. Their role was an esteemed one, trusted conveyors of word and oath, tasked with untangling the delicate web of political and dynastic alliances while relaying intricate proclamations that would alter lives and landscapes. Crafted missives, too, played their part. Parchment known to indelibly record kingdom histories became the backbone of alliances and treaties, hand-scribed with vigilant craft. Every quill stroke meticulated, matters best deemed under pledge or guard, sealed carefully with wax, protected fiercely by those cadenced amidst shadowed halls. The risk held grim for a missive miscarried, underscoring the weight of medieval trust. While formal correspondence addressed those of rank, less prominent communications thrived among the fortress populace. Gossip thrived like a secret currency, whispered through barred windows or exchanged across bustling markets. Even frescoes and tapestries spun narratives in symbolic language, crafting stories into colors and textures buoyed by visual charisma, a visual tweet of its day, storied in vision among friends and foes. Historians debate whether these tapestries served to promote genuine understanding or formed yet another layer of medieval intrigue and artifice. In either regard, they underline the human drive to share, connect, and convey meaning woven through multi-hued threads of daily rhythm. Beyond spoken and written tongues, medieval communication found vibrant life in the embroidery of gestures, these quiet kin often defining relations more intimately than mere words. A nod of a cord or bow taken at counsel, the clapped shoulder in affirmation or subtly protective arm together shifted narrative intimate symbols that spoke louder in daily vernacular flourishing amid cloistered stone reaches. Reflecting upon this nuanced exchange of ideas and intentions, you realize that without digital aids, the medieval world resembled a colorful mosaic where each piece contributed to a broader picture, rich in historical discourse as coded, and as complex as any algorithm. Despite lacking modern communication avenues, the fortress thrived on this dynamic vitality in sharing knowledge, no matter how trivial or transformative. As you walk through these ancient halls, surrounded by walls that echoed with myriad voices long past, it's reaffirmed that meaningful communication does not solely depend upon the utility of technology or the abundance of data. Depth lay within the dialogues. Impressions impressed more by personal intention, woven artfully amid exchange, ennobled, genuine connections created from nothing more than a whisper in the wind, a mark on the parchment, or a signal passed from person to person. Leaving this web of discourse behind, the fortress once more hums silently, with past conversants, a silhouette watching patiently as time unfolds, layered in thoughts shared across stone memories, and echoes creaturely through the compelling fabric of woven folk's fortuitous speech. Onward echoes resound within stones nestled, a perceivable peace curates securely held thought for future tongues, tireless tales of timeless testimony, where humans achieve chorus in communion shared. With each step resonating softly against the stone floors, you now walk towards the closing chapter of your exploration, a place where echoes become whispers, where the past gently folds into the tranquil arms of the present. The fortress, with all its grandeur and complexity, withholds its final secret. It is a secret not bound in stone nor in iron, but in the gentle passage of time itself, an echo that reminds us of the continuum of human experience. As you traverse these hallowed halls one last time, there is a clear sense of the rhythm of days gone by, like a fading symphony reaching its softest note. The fortress, once bustling with life and now steeped in solitude, stands resilient and wise, a vessel of stories told and untold, a silent witness to all that has transpired within its walls. Your mind's eye fills with visions of the inhabitants whose lives were woven into the fabric of this storied edifice. The masons who built it, the knights who defended it, the lords and ladies who governed beneath its shadow, and the many who lived, laughed, and loved here, each one a thread in the rich tapestry of its history. You pause at a window, overlooking the sprawling terrain below. The view is timeless, a testament to both the constancy of change and the enduring presence of the fortress itself. Here, the boundary between past and present blurs, creating a space where the whispers of yesterday mingle with the promise of tomorrow, a reminder of the timelessness of human narrative. In the courtyard below, the ghostly imprints of market stalls appear and disappear, like memories surfacing from the depths of time, fleeting as dreams. The stone paths, once warmed by the tread of countless feet, lay dormant yet vibrant with the life they once channeled, a time-traveled pathway that leads inexorably forward. Historians have long debated the roles such fortresses played, whether they were centers of power or merely relics of martial necessity. Still, what remains indisputable is the indelible impact they've had throughout history. Vivid snapshots of ambition, fortitude, and human creativity etched indelibly into stone. As you leave the fortress behind, its echo lingers, a presence as eternal as the sky that watches overhead. A reminder that beneath its formidable exterior lay a deeply human heart, with hopes and dreams forged into its formidable fabric. In every creak of timber and every echoing footfall, the fortress hums with the song of humanity, a melody still resonant and hauntingly beautiful, carried forward by those willing to listen. In this gentle twilight, the fortress stands as a guardian of time itself, its echoes a bridge linking past to present. Through silent stones and whispered winds, it beckons you to ponder the stories it holds, the lives touched, the histories recorded and unrecorded. As you take this journey's final steps, the harmonized notes of resilience, courage, and unity echo quietly, cradled within your thoughts, a sweet resonance that extends its reach into the quietude of nights that have already closed their eyes for sleep. And so, as you prepare to drift into slumber, remember the lessons whispered within these walls, the strength that comes from standing steadfast against the torrents of time, the peace that follows understanding, and the enduring beauty found in the stories we carry forward. Close your eyes now, and let the echoes of the medieval fortress, entwined with time and tales, guide you gently into the embrace of dreams. Sweet dreams.